Hugs from people you love are not scary. But you know what is scary? Uncertainty, haircuts, death. But above all else, the freaking moon from Majora's Mask, oh my goodness, I feel itchy. Now, although there are games like this specifically made to make you do this, there are also games like this that made me do one of these. Video games are subjective. What one person finds absolutely terrifying, another person might think it's cool, because they're weird. Where most people see a game like Little Big Planet as this cute little game about sack people platforming in a whimsical world, I see these nightmarish creatures as mouths and eyes, and I get the urge to confess my sins. Alright, let's see here. Social Skills 101, Firefly's Lyrics Explained, the Bible. Here we go. Unintentional horror for me personally is usually more effective than things like jump scares. Because although seeing an animatronic burst into my room looking to eat my lunch is shocking, it's really nothing more than a jolt of oh crap followed immediately by a never mind. I think I value unintentional horror more as it's normally a gut feeling of unease or a suspicion that something just ain't right. So come take a trip with me down memory lane as we talk about unintentional horror in video games. Now these are just some fun, terrifying memories I have. Some go back to when I was a dumb kid with dumb kid brain syndrome, and some go all the way up until now. I promise I'm an adult. No. But just to keep score, I'm gonna rank each spook 1 out of 10 for how many fingers I'm holding up while playing through these now. So grab that popcorn, light those candles, let's get into it. The N64 is pure nightmare fuel. There, I said it. I don't know if it's the limited hardware which caused scary looking models or the developers all banding together to freak everyone out, but my goodness, it is always heebie-my-jeebies. For instance, the shark from Banjo-Kazooie. Sure, there can be a shark, but why did it have to look like it knew the time and date of my death? Well, on a brighter note, look, a Legend of Zelda game. I'm sure there's nothing horrifically scarring at the bottom of this well, right? Never mind, let's look at the sequel. It probably toned down the spook factor. I mean, after all, this is a Nintendo console for kids. It's about death and existential dread with a literal interpretation of an ever-looming threat of the world ending. I'm more of a Mario guy. For some reason, both N64 Zelda games hold some of the most off-putting, creepy sections and overall vibes of the entire franchise. Now, I didn't grow up playing these games, thank goodness, because if I did, I would have been scared silly. I've only started to play these games recently, and even now, it gives off such a cool and creepy vibe that I can't help but love. There is so much in this game that still freaks me out, and it somehow got away with an E rating. So I'm gonna have to give it 4 out of 10 fingers. Now, when it came to the N64, not even the console's flagship most popular title got off scare-free, which leads us to Mario 64. Shoot, Mario 64 holds some of my first fears in games. What on the outside looks like a wholesome adventure full of whimsy, bliss, and Italian plumbing goodness freaking disturbed me when I was younger, and not for the reasons you may think. See, although things like the jump scare piano sure did jump scare me, it wasn't ever really scary. What I'm much more freaked out by is the vibe and atmosphere a specific level or place gives off. When something looks creepy, sounds creepy, and makes you feel creepy, that's pretty scary. Which brings us to the endless staircase. Things being slightly off or not exactly what they seem have always spooked me, and I have Mario 64's endless staircase to thank for that. You try to climb the stairs, but just can't. A frantic piano starts playing as if you're leading somewhere and you're waiting for something to pop out at you, but it just keeps going. All while the music loops back, gets higher, and Bowser's awkward family photo portraits eye you down. And as a kid with dumb kid brain, I thought there had to be a way to get to the top, so I just kept running. After a while, I started to feel uneasy. It began to feel like something was chasing me, or I wouldn't be able to get back down, or that my mom was gonna walk in and see me on my DS at 11 o'clock. Going back to the staircase nowadays and knowing just about 1% of how game development actually works, it's more cool than actually off-putting. That's why I'm gonna give it 1 out of 10 fingers. Please remember what that's in reference to, or this will get very awkward very fast. But that's not the only thing from Mario 64 that unnerved me. As your first take into Jolly Roger Bay, something always rubbed me the wrong way. The dank fog and dark colors sure do make it atmospheric, but it's the fact that all the other levels had life living about, even the water levels too. But at Jolly Roger Bay, the only thing jolly is that soundtrack jamming out as you realize just how alone you really are. In the game, wasn't a living thing above water except you. The only way to progress through the level was to swim. Was there a reason nothing was here? Was a horrific monster gonna swallow you whole once you got in the water? Am I totally overreacting? Well, back then I didn't know any better, so you best believe I stayed above water hoping to find some sort of star sitting in plain sight. But there wasn't. You had to swim down to the depths, and then come face to face with Big Man over here. Now, I wasn't scared of Mr. Eel as most, but it's definitely unsettling, especially in the original 64. But now that I'm older, Jolly Roger Bay has a certain charm. I know no Lovecraftian horror beyond my comprehension's out to get me, yet. But that eel though, ugh. So I'm gonna give it 2 out of 10 fingers. So far you may be saying to yourself, wow, MeMelon, you're so cool and manly and cool. You must be not scared of anything. Well, that's where you're wrong. I am not very cool. But also, there's a creature in a water level where even I, with an almost fully developed brain, am still scared silly. I present to you Yoshi's Island. Play as a little colored dinosaur, but with an extra buddy, as you adventure across wacky lands and meet all sorts of crazy creatures, like Shy Guys on stilts, Fat Shy Guys, and horror incarnate, the lunchfish from Yoshi's Island. There's something about its design, the way it sits in the water, squinting at you, makes awkward eye contact, then immediately submerges into the depths. It's literally scarier than a 9-to-5 job. As a kid, this game gave me a distinct fear of anything water related in games. Just knowing this thing was under the water waiting to swallow me whole is legitimately still scary to me today as it was all those years ago. I recently replayed Yoshi's Island, and I remembered that something in the game disturbed me as a kid, so I decided to be a man to do some exposure therapy by just sitting in the water. And let's just say, 7.5 fingers out of 10. Yes, I'm a wuss. Please tell me I'm not the only one. As you can see, there's something about water in games that is absolutely terrifying. Not for what's on the surface, usually, but what is below, in the murky depths, just out of your vision. As you can see, the fear of the open water was and still is a major fear I have today, and oh my god, they made an entire game around it. An open ocean as a survival game is already a cool idea, but an open alien ocean with freaking leviathans? Sign me up, that sounds so cool, never mind, I'm scared. Now funny enough, Subnautica was never meant to be a horror game. Somehow. It was made to just be another fun exploration adventure game, but underwater. But as the devs try to put obstacles in your way, dear lord. One of the key aspects in adding that, hey god, it's me again, inducing tension and atmosphere is that feeling of isolation. Subnautica uses it to its advantage by making it brutally clear no one is coming for you, alive, and that you're completely out of your element here. If you haven't played Subnautica, I strongly urge you to stop what you're doing, even if it's knitting a sweater, and go play it right now, because going in blind is the best and worst thing you can do for your sanity. Going in blind myself, I knew there were some mean fish out there, but not knowing what or where exactly they were made every single inch covered absolutely terrifying. I'd like to talk about Subnautica more in depth in the future, because it captured such a specific fear with its gameplay that I haven't seen any other game match. But for now, all I'll say is if you play Subnautica, consider your drawers drenched. 9 out of 10 fingers. But just like Subnautica, there's 2 other games I'd like to talk about that both use isolation in their own unique way, that both uniquely freak me out. First up, a game that's probably not too high on your spooky list is Portal. Although the second game has hints of isolation, it's really the first game that sticks you inside a room alone and makes you think about every wrong thing you've done in your life. You wake up in this cold, sterile chamber and hear a robotic voice telling you to start doing tests. Mondays, am I right?
Hello.
It starts off somewhat innocently enough, but as the game progresses, you start to notice, where is everybody? No one else is around. The observation rooms where scientists should be studying are all empty. There's remnants of people that have come and gone through the chambers, but what little remains starts to alarm you. It's only when you put the pieces together that you realize you are completely alone and not for a fun reason. And the cool thing is, you have to figure all this stuff out on your own. And once I connected the dots and figured out things weren't quite as they seemed, it was another level of unnerving. Where did everybody go? Why are you here? Who is the robotic voice? Is she a good singer? All those questions get answered, but until you get to that point, it is rather spooky. Most of the Source Engine games have always had an uncanny feeling associated with them, but Portal takes that above and beyond. 5 cake-covered fingers. Before we get to our last pick of the night, I'd like to give an honorable mention. Most console startups are fun, cheerful, and gets you hyped to play some games. The PS2 startup reminds you that everyone dies alone. Growing up, I didn't own a PS2, but a few of my friends did. And we all know it's healthy to associate a friend's house with impending doom. And for our last pick of the night is a game that holds a special place in my heart. It might even confuse you more than Portal did, because this game that scares me is freaking Minecraft. This game should not and was not intended to scare you, but for me, there was always something uniquely unnerving about Minecraft. It uses isolation differently than Portal. Instead of it being intriguing and scary, Minecraft is more surreal and lonely, but in a good way. You'd think Minecraft's soundtrack would be full of grand orchestras and lively music, but most of the time you sit in silence. And when the soundtrack does kick in, it's at random points and is usually somber and melancholy. The sound all around is incredible. As you're exploring, you hear these off-putting sounds in the distance. They supposedly mean caves are nearby, but 10-year-old me did not know that. All I knew was that I was alone, naked, and afraid. See, in a single-player game in Minecraft, who would have guessed it, you are completely alone. And if you were anything like me with a brick of a PC back then, your graphics were low, render distance was short, and there was fog everywhere. As you explore in Minecraft, you notice that sure, there's animals, monsters, even whatever villagers are, but throughout the entire world, there's no one that even looks like you. But what if there was? But Herobrine's just a wives' tale that keeps you afraid and locked up in your 4x4 plank house all night. Oh yeah? And why did Mojang, the developers, take him out of the game? Checkmate. It is really cool how Mojang leaned into the whole Herobrine thing, even if he wasn't actually real. But who knows? Maybe you'll be crafting one day to see a familiar silhouette in the distance. Or that's a creeper in your house. 4 existential fingers. And there we have it. My favorite unintentional horror elements in video games. But I'll leave it to you. What were some terrifying, downright spooky things that scared you? And in the meantime... What was that? Well, happy Halloween.